Hello students, so in this video I'm going to show you how you can set up Clojure on the ID IntelliJ on macOS. So I picked for that a machine that has absolutely nothing installed. So to show you all the steps, so there might be some steps that you don't need to go through. Like the first one is to get Java installed. This is probably the case for you already. Um, so the first step is to get Java installed so we can download Java for Mac. And if you have already downloaded, you probably won't need to do it. So um, it's going to be here, download Java for macOS Intel. Just while this is downloading, I'm also letting you know that some of these steps might be slightly different for uh, M series system. It's right here. So I'll let you uh, check that. If you have Apple Silicon computer, some of those might be slightly different. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing. So we're going to get Java installed. And then sometimes there are some security things you need to go through. Sometimes you have to go through system preference security and allow the installation of the app. So the second step while this is installing is to install JDK. Sorry, JDK. This is going to be on Oracle. Sometimes, and I've not done that for a while, so bear with me. Download. So here again, we're gonna have to get the right version, DMG installer, and here again, if you are running on ARM64, you're gonna need to pick another one. So now we have Java installed. We need to install the JDK, that's all we need on the Java side. For the application, we're going to use the ID. We're going to use IntelliJ. The community edition is the free version. That's the one I suggest you install. Here, yeah, they kind of tend to, yeah, exactly, to try to get you to get the one that is not free. But the free version is all we need. So we're going to install that as well. Now, JDK is downloaded. So I'm going to install the JDK as well. And same thing. For most of you, you probably already have that installed on your machine, so you probably don't need to go through those steps. And same thing if you already have IntelliJ. It might not be needed. So while IntelliJ is downloading, we also going to need to install the Clojure interpreter that is called Leiningen. And so for that we need to have the brew system installed. And on this machine, again, it's a machine that has really basically nothing on it, more or less. So we don't have brew. Homebrew is a very convenient package installation system on macOS. So I really recommend if you have Mac that you have it anyway. You can just tap install Homebrew Mac, and it's going to take you to a page, and it's the same thing here. Unfortunately, with there's some trick to get to install Brew application on Apple Silicon Mac. I'll let you look online. If you really have trouble, you can always try to reach out to me. Um, but for any other version, any Intel-based Mac, it works perfectly. So to install Homebrew, you just need to copy that line here and just do that. You need sudo access, of course, for all of that. So you can put your pass word here, and so it's installing Homebrew right now. So Homebrew again is a package installer, so it's going to allow us to install behind that Leiningen, which we need to be able to run Clojure on IntelliJ. So Clojure is runs on JVM, so it's why we need all the Java behind it, because it's Java based. So that's why IntelliJ is the perfect idea. What is really nice with Clojure is that's one of the few functional language that has full IDE support with IntelliJ. You can do debugging and all kind of things that are usually complicated to do with other languages. So yes, it's going to download the command line tools for Xcode as well. So it's going to be pretty long here and heavy. So I might have to stop the video at some point and keep it going. If you have Xcode installed already, it should take much less time because you need Xcode as part of Homebrew and for other things. So I have IntelliJ almost downloaded here, so I'm going to wait for it to finish, and then I'll show you how you get that installed. It's really very, very straightforward to install IntelliJ, but we're going to need one additional plugin on top of IntelliJ. So I'm going to show you a plugin to be able to handle it's called Cursive. It's to handle all the syntax and ID aspects for Clojure specifically. IntelliJ works on many languages, but we need specific plugins to make it work for specific languages. I know it's a lot, so bear with me, and we're actually not that far from getting something that works. Okay, so I'm dragging IntelliJ, the community edition, the free version, to application. So now I should be able to start IntelliJ. We can keep in dock. This first time it starts, it always takes a little bit of time. Almost there. Open. If you're not used to IntelliJ, it is a really nice, for Java in general, it is a really nice IDE. And so I really suggest giving it a try in general. So here we're not going to open yet because we don't have our we're going to eventually do that, but we don't have our project set up yet. This is actually moving forward here. our Clojure project set up yet, and we need this Leiningen for to be able to interpret Clojure. But in the meantime, we're going to work on plugins because we can do that right away. And here, so if you go to plugins, and you can also find that by going into IntelliJ preferences. If you do IntelliJ preferences, there is also a plugin tab. That's exactly the same thing, right? But here, right away in the welcome window, there is this plugin tab as well that I can just select. And here I can type Clojure. That's spelled with a J, by the way. And it's going to give you all kind of things all kind of plugins that are relevant for Clojure. But the one we are interested in is Cursive, which doesn't appear here. And I'm surprised. Usually it does. Oh, there it is. Sorry. It's right here. Cursive. So we're going to use Cursive. It's full Clojure and Clojure script language support. For IntelliJ. So we're going to do install, accept, and there you go. It's installed. Restart IDE to finish the installation. And for now, that's it. We need to wait for the homebrew for the brew package installer to be fully downloaded and installed. So right now it's still working on installing Xcode. So I'm gonna pause the video and pick it up once this is done. So here we go. Homebrew has been installed, so at some point they ask you again for your password because it goes from installing Xcode to installing the actual Homebrew. Homebrew is actually really fast to install. It's only all the background needed Xcode that takes a while. So that's it. Installation successful. Brew is installed. Now, if I just type brew, I can see that it works. The command line is recognized. So we're going to do brew install line. And this is what is going to install Leiningen, no available formula. So maybe I didn't. Actually, we have to put it. I thought it was just line, but it's Leiningen. So we have to type the whole name, which is Leiningen, spelled like that. And this time it should work. There you go. So it's installing Leiningen. It's going to take a little bit of time. Just waiting here. It should not be too long. Now the Leiningen has been installed. And so you can test that the command line works by just typing line. And so it should show us some available task with the command line. So you can try different things. So what we can do actually is the first thing to try and just play with Clojure is to try the REPL. If you do a line REPL, for instance, it's going to open a REPL, which is a server that can read any Clojure instruction, and you can actually it's sort of like a server namespace on Clojure, so you can actually type any kind of instruction in there in Clojure, and it's going to be able to, oops, sorry about that, I went a bit too fast. It's going to be able to interpret any of those instructions and give you the answer. So I can do something like I don't know if this is going to work. Map inc 258. Yeah, so I'm just asking to increment each of the list and return the map, return the list. So yeah, anything like that is going to work. Plus times 4, 5, 10. There you go. So so that's the REPL. Actually, to exit, yeah, we can just do exit like that. There you go. So you can do line REPL at any time to just play with that. But we will actually use a REPL that is integrated within IntelliJ, thanks to uh, Leiningen we just installed, and the fact that IntelliJ works with Leiningen, we're going to be able to do that. But what we're going to do now is just select a folder. I suggest you, if you probably have like a dev folder. So if you go to your dev folder, here we're going to do line new app, and this command is just going to generate a new project, basically project folder with all the files needed in there with a hello world example. So here, because we are working on an interpreter in our CS390 class, I'm just going to call it CS390 interpreter, but you could call it my project or hello world or whatever. And now we should have, yes, we should have CS390 interpreter. So if we open the corresponding folder, we have here a bunch of files. And now we're going to be able to open that project with IntelliJ, right? So I'm going to go back to my IntelliJ window, do open, and dev CS390 interpreter. And we should have a window with the classical IntelliJ window with the project on the left and all the files. They might be sometimes, it might tell us a bunch of messages here on the right. Here, everything seems to be okay. We don't need to enable that, but if we want to, we can. If we have a message that says we can't find the SDK or the Java, then what we can do is go to preferences and make sure, no, not preferences, project structure. So our project is here. So we have our sources into project structure and make sure that detecting SDK. See here, that's actually the problem, is that it is not automatically set. So here, if it's red, you're going to need to select one of the SDK. In our case, it's the version 20. Any version like beyond 11 works, if I'm not actually even 7 or 8. So anyway, it doesn't have to be the newest version. That's what I meant. Apply. Here we have, if we can check that in platform settings, we have the SDK. Okay. So it's still doing some work here. So we have to give it a little bit of time to set up everything. But we can already look into core.clg, and we're going to have the hello world main here that we can run. So I'm not used to that version, so it might take me a little while. because on the top we should have view. We should have the build. Anyway, so we can try to run that. But the problem is that yeah, I'm not used to that version. Usually on the top right, I have access. Yeah, the REPL here, Leiningen. Usually we have access to the possible or edit configurations. That's what I was looking for. So here in edit configurations, we're going to be able to add a local REPL. But it's not letting us yet. So sometimes, yes, sometimes what needs to be done is to right-click on project.clj and do add as Leiningen project. There you go. And now we have the little triangle here. So sorry about that. I forgot that step. We right-click on project.clj. So this contains all the dependencies and the description of the project of our CS390 interpreter project. So we need to do a right-click on that file and do add as Leiningen project, right? So now once this is done, we now have the possibility to run that configuration. We can also run it from here directly. If we do that, it should actually work. We're just going to have a hello world, right? So it just executes the main. But we can also work with the REPL, right? So if yeah, just for the sake of to make sure project. So if I put this here and I run it either here or here, right now it registered it already registered what this is supposed to go fetch, which is the main here. Hello world, this is my first Clojure project. But the best way to actually work with Clojure and develop and implement is really through the REPL, because we can do some quick testing of specific functions with specific arguments. And so we're going to set up a REPL configuration. So right now we have a run configuration that just run the program. And so it goes fetch a main. If you don't have a main, this is not going to work, right? If I comment this and I put some other function, there's nothing to run anymore. But even if you don't have a main, you can still use the REPL to call any function. So I went a bit fast, sorry about that. I did add new configuration here, plus. So again, going back here, I can do edit configuration. And I have my application configuration because that's my run configuration. I'm going to do add new configuration, and then I'm going to pick Clojure REPL local. And here I can just name it REPL. Doesn't matter. I'm going to leave everything by default here. I'm not going to change anything, except I'm going to use run with Leiningen. And I don't need to put anything in profile. I'm going to apply, okay. And now if I try to run, so now I have this option, right? So I'm choosing REPL, and if I run the REPL, it's going to open a side window where I can now use the REPL the same way I was doing it on the terminal window before. Okay, so I can do a map dake and it's going to return a decrement of each of those numbers. So I can do any function like that. But what I can do also is create my functions on my core file or any other namespace, right? I can add any namespace here, and you can find some reference to understand how a namespace work. But they are basically like more or less like modules that you can call one from the other. But here I'm going to do everything in the core. It's easier, and for our project we don't need to have namespaces, so we can just use the core. That's perfectly fine. The core.clg file. Note that the core.clg is always the starting point, right? So if you want to run, I mean, it's going to look. The core is a special file. It's going to need a core, and you're going to have a problem if you delete that file. Here, if I define a function and I don't have ones in mind, so I'm going to try to just write one off the top of my head, but uh, my function x, and then I just print this is my name and x. Now, if I do that, right, you don't need to save. There is no save in IntelliJ. It always saves automatically. So, but if I try to call my function here, my function Hugo, it's not going to work because it doesn't know what my function is. The reason is that we need to add that file to the to the to the REPL, right? To load it into the REPL. So to do that, you can do a right click anywhere on the page, and you can just select load. Well, I guess REPL. Yeah, you say REPL load file in REPL, right? After a while, you just prefer to use the shortcut, which is Command Shift L. Once it's loaded into the REPL, you see this loading thing, and now if I call that, it's going to print, this is my name, Hugo. Now, what's interesting is that it also shows that it returns null, nil. The reason is that the last thing returned by a function is always what is returned, right? The last call. So if here instead I put 5 and I'm loading again, it's going to return 5, right? So the reason it returns nil before is that a println a print is always going to return nil. So Clojure for that is interesting. I'm not going to start diving into teaching Clojure now. It's supposed to be just a tutorial to get started, but it's one of those things where it's not entirely purely functional in the sense that you can have a sequence of instructions like that. But ultimately, the last one of the sequence is going to be what is returned by the function. So I can do 5 here, which doesn't make much sense, but then I can do a times 2 my function Hugo. Doesn't make much sense, but it's going to return 10 because it really computes 2 times 5. Okay. So I think that's it to get started. You can start getting familiar now with the language, with this parenthesis system, which can be a bit unsettling at first, but in the end really is actually quite convenient because you can really completely see the scope of a function, right? It goes from here to here, and it's really convenient because that's the function, and there's nothing relevant for this specific call outside of those parentheses. The other thing about this parenthesis system is that it's kind of goes hand in hand with the laziness of evaluation in Clojure. and how it works. And this is a bit of a of a tricky aspect, but you don't have to enter into details of that. But I would like just to mention how flexible it is with working with any kind of sequences, right? So just like I used before, you notice that whether I do a map inc on a vector, or if I do it instead of a vector on a lazy sequence, um, it really doesn't care, and that's one of the things that is remarkable, right? Um, I can do a map my function also. This is my name 378. But what is nice is that, of course, it doesn't have to be numbers, and it won't care. The typing is extremely flexible. It's actually untyped, right? There is nobody requires you to type the function, to type the argument of the function. So there is a pretty incredible level of flexibility here, um, and um, and of course, yeah, arguments can be functions themselves, etc. So I'm going to leave it here. I think that's enough for the for this introduction. You now know how to use the REPL or to um, run uh, run a main. And I wish you good luck with what comes next. Thank you.